without a shadow of a doubt that you're created on purpose for a purpose. Mindset and money revolution. You have to have a mindset revolution to experience a money revolution. That's when you experience a true wealth revolution.
My name is Chad Free. Welcome to the Wealth Revolution Podcast.
Welcome back to the Wealth Revolution Podcast. My name's Chad Free, and man, I am pumped today because I got a celebrity here. I do. Not just that. I got a great friend, man. I've got the one and only Jeremy Mayfield here with me. We're offset doing the Wealth Revolution Podcast, but this is a podcast, man, we can go on and on just how this got arranged. You know, I had you on my list to call, and your wife reached out and said, hey, you should have Jeremy on.
Right.
So it's crazy, right?
I'm telling you, man, all kind of stuff's happened today that's been crazy like that, you know, between the two of us. And, just her story, just telling the way all that went down just to get here was pretty wild.
Absolutely. But my name's Chad Free, and I am a wealth strategist. But look, I believe true wealth is built from the inside out, and it's literally an abundance of everything that you value. And it's not all about what's in your bank account and what kind of car you drive and all that good stuff. And that's why it's called the Wealth Revolution. It's about pursuing your purpose and unlocking your potential, being present, being where your feet are, and then profiting internally and externally. But ultimately, look, having peace in knowing that you are going in a direction that you were supposed to be going in. And I think just from our conversations down here, we got a lot to talk about because I believe faith really helped you through your journey and your story, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, that's something that I learned from a really early age. It seems like when I was, young and growing up and, trying to figure out what I want to do in my life. And I always prayed and things always just would happen for me, and I couldn't explain it. And I look back today and I think that those were like little miracles that happened throughout my life that helped me get to where I thought I was wanting to go and where I wanted to be, but yeah, faith is everything in my book. And something that, it's not faith and miracles, but they kind of go together. You know what I mean? When you have faith and things start happening for you, you realize there's when you couldn't see no other way of it happening, yourself, then all of a sudden, bam, something happens that you look at as like a miracle, and I think a lot of people experience that, but don't really understand how that all works. You know what I mean? By having faith and seeing the little miracles that happen every day in your life.
100%. And so as we go into this, I mean, all our listeners, they know that I'm raw and real.
Right.
I'm not going to sit up here and be all prim and proper.
Right.
I don't believe you're going to be that way either, right?
No, that's right.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
So we're gonna talk about some things, and we're gonna kind of pull back the curtain on your life. And for people that don't know you, a lot of people will know you, but man, you've had some stuff go on.
Oh yeah, and that's where the word faith that really comes in right there, because we've had a lot going on in our lives the last 15 years, I guess you'd say, and the 15 before that was all great. Everything was perfect and going great, and then had a little stumble and a few setbacks, and now 15 years later, here we are. And
a little stumble. He says a little stumble.
A little stumble, yeah.
So let's dive right in. Jeremy Mayfield. Look, he's got a commercial, and I mean, I don't know. You got to be over 30 or 40 actually to know what it is, right?
Right.
Like this girl's getting ready. She's putting gasoline on her wrist and all, blowing her hair with an air compressor, right?
Yeah, she had an air compressor and a gallon of gas and taking a bath in oil or something. I'm not sure what it was. But.
And here comes this race car and pulls up, and there's Jeremy Mayfield, and she hops in. And she says, "Hey, Jeremy!" Right.
Oh yeah.
And you said, is that 93 octane you were wearing?
Yeah.
Right. So, but Jeremy Mayfield was and is a big wheel man. He drove for NASCAR and had some stumbling blocks that happened there, and I want to go into that just a little bit. So let's just jump right in. First of all, I want to say how I met you.
Well, wait a minute. You didn't finish the commercial a while ago. When I pull up to pick my date up, right?
Yeah.
So I pull up and she jumps in the car, and I could smell gasoline or something. Wasn't sure what it was, so I asked her if that was octane 93.
Yeah.
She said, "Yeah, you like it?" And I said, "Oh yeah." And then we took off. So you didn't finish all that part.
I know. He
Yeah.
actually did a nice burnout too. That's
I did a
right.
good burnout with it,
That's right. Yeah, you did a real good burnout.
Right.
Y'all need to look that up. Maybe we can plug that in here.
Yeah, we should.
So I met you about 5 years ago, and I sponsored a dirt track car. And this is after you were no longer in NASCAR.
Mhm.
And I want to set the stage. Things didn't work out with NASCAR, and you got accused of some things that
Mhm.
were far from the truth, right? And
Right.
the media put stuff out there, and I'm saying all this to tell you, when I found out Jeremy Mayfield was at that track,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, he's the guy that got busted for drugs or whatever. Now, I'm not one to say stuff,
Do you
but
remember what track that was?
Winder,
Yeah,
Georgia.
Winder, Georgia. Yep, Winder
Yeah.
Barrel. Yep.
Winder,
I just wonder
Georgia.
if you remember that, but that was the track. I remember
Yeah.
that plain as day. So
Yeah. So I'm sitting here thinking, that's all I've ever heard.
right.
So in the back of my mind,
Yeah.
I've got one eye on you, like,
Right.
you know, wonder if there's any deals going down in that trailer.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so later on, I started digging into his story and past the first several pages of Google. When you
Yeah.
really start doing your own research, and Jeremy, you were done wrong, man.
Right.
And the stance that you took
Yep.
through that, you gained a huge fan in Chad Free.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. And you've told me that, but I really do appreciate that a lot, because that's something that when all that went down was happening, and when you start Googling somebody, and I'm thinking, man, how do I get all this off Google? You know what I mean? And it just wouldn't go away, and it just kept going on. And thanks to people like you that would, look into it and really try to understand really what happened, and understand that not just by what I'm saying or what the media is saying, but really looking into the deep and having some common sense about it,
Right.
And so I appreciate that a lot too.
Well, one reason that I started looking is because I did meet you.
Mhm.
I'm like, there's no way this guy was like that,
Right.
And so, very high level, you had some falling out with your current team and that owner, and then you came back with your own team in Daytona, right?
Right. Yep.
And you pulled together a crew,
Yep.
and the former car owner
Mhm.
and the powers to be of NASCAR were
Right.
pretty tight, right?
Right. Yeah. Really tight.
But you were getting all the coverage in
Right.
Daytona, right? And
Right.
that made some people upset and mad, didn't it?
Well, I feel like that after, I left the 19 car, that I was kind of blackballed when I came back, so I couldn't find a ride. And usually that wasn't a problem, because, somebody always wanted you to drive the car. And so I feel like I was kind of blackballed, and then, I loved to race and wanted to continue doing it. So then we started our own team,
Right.
so then when I started my own team, then because I didn't realize everything that had happened at the time,
Sure.
it took a while to go looking back to figure out what all went down. But so at that time, I'm just wanting to race, so I, went and bought some cars and put a crew together, and we went to Daytona.
Right,
So we
right.
made Daytona 500.
And so because of that, because of maybe some bitterness, some jealousy or whatever, they started doing some tests, some random
Yeah.
tests, drug tests. And
Well, but before that though, at the beginning of every season, you go get your physical and you do your drug test then, basically.
Yep.
So, when done my physical, when got my drug test done, and then we had a deal. I forgot when it was, probably like in January, early January, before we went testing or whatever, that they set us all down, all the drivers, and said, this is what our new drug policy is going to look like.
Mhm.
And this is the way it's going to work. Is we're going to do random testing instead of whatever the other one was. I guess the other ones, if you look like you were on drugs, they could test you.
Right.
And so at that point, I listened to what they said. And then what they were saying was, if you're taking anything and it's not on your physical sheet, which Claritin D was on mine.
Yep.
If you're taking anything extra, whether it's supplements or whatever prescription medicine, whatever you're going to take, and we test you, that you could then tell us what you were taking.
Right.
And then if you tell us what you're taking, then after that we've tested you and we don't approve of it, then we'll tell you we don't approve of it.
Right.
And then go back, either stop taking or whatever the deal was.
Makes sense.
So, but if you got a prescription or a, from a doctor or whatever, that's your medication, then that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that I was doing the right thing, and I started taking Adderall right after I started my own team.
Yep.
And then, not thinking anything about it because it was doctor prescribed, and it was something I needed or felt like I needed at the time. And
let me stop you right there real quick, because I have ADD.
Right.
And I remember you and your wife kind of telling me that part of the story. She was like, you just want to work on a car. You want to get the car right. You just want to drive. But you're the car owner and driver now, and you have to meet with all the sponsors and stuff. And your wife said, look, you're going to have to focus.
Right.
And that was hard for you. So that's when you looked into that and you were prescribed Adderall.
Right. Right, exactly. And I've always known that something was wrong with me. You know what I mean?
Nothing wrong with you,
but I'm going to back up a little bit long, before that was, as I was growing up as a kid, right? I hated school, didn't want to go to school. I barely made it through high school, had no clue, no intentions of ever going to any kind of education after that, like college or anywhere. I didn't want to do none of that. I wanted to race, and I wanted to race cars, and I wanted to, either if I wasn't racing, I wanted to work on them. That's what I like doing. And so I knew that at an early age that's where I was headed and what I wanted to do. Didn't know how far I was going to go, but so all I've ever done was go to the shop or a garage and work day and night on race cars.
Yep.
And I had no clue about money or trying to what the sport, how big it was. I never looked at what kind of money you're going to make. I looked at that. That was the last thing on my list.
Sure.
I didn't have it on there. So with that said, when that's all you've ever done, that's all I knew. So I didn't. And as I got into the sport before I owned my own team, I learned that okay, you got to do this, you got to act like this, you got to dress like this, you got to blah 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 blah. Everything's all laid out for you after I got there, and then so then it's hard to keep up, especially when somebody's worked in the shop all the time, like myself. Now I'm sitting home not doing anything. What do I do with myself? And then everywhere you went, you got to look right, talk right, you got to say the right things and all this stuff. So with all that going on, it's hard for somebody that's been nothing but a driver and basically a mechanic,
Yep.
And to learn all that stuff, it was like, because I didn't want to learn anything, all I wanted is race,
Sure.
So to learn the business side of the sport, it was exceptionally hard for me.
Right.
And then when we started our own team, Shana knew real quick that you're going to struggle with this, because of meetings and, meeting with sponsors. It's nothing I hadn't done before, but I could go sit in a meeting that my car owner was having with the sponsor, and I could just sit there and it didn't affect me anyway.
Right.
As long as I looked right and said the right things and everything was great.
Yep.
But now I'm going to have to go make decisions and business decisions and make things happen with sponsors and for our team, So that's where all that came about. Was she knew how I was internally, what I mean? And
that's right.
And I probably was going to need help, and she was definitely right, at the time for sure.
Right.
I needed to try something, but the bad thing about it was Adderall really didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like now I got a bad taste of it, or whatever you want to say of that, because it really didn't. She thinks it helped me some, and it probably did some, but I feel like it took out who I really was,
Yeah.
And
so when we, we're probably going to have another episode. I already know that, right? As we're going into this, but staying high level, they did this random test on you. You wrote down what your prescription was and what you were taking. And because they were blackballing you. They were out to get you. We're just going to say it.
Right. Period. Yeah, definitely. Look at now that at that time, I knew it wasn't going to go right.
This episode of the Wealth Revolution podcast is brought to you by Black Diamond Money Moves. What if you could flip the script and turn your debt into wealth? Imagine paying yourself instead of your creditors, getting out of debt in a fraction of the time, and becoming your own bank. That's exactly what we help you do at Black Diamond Money Moves. Visit blackdiamondmoneymoves.com and start making your money move with purpose.
Just because when I tried to call Dr. Black and tell him what I was taking, this and the other, the comments he made to me before he even tested my urine,
Yep.
it didn't sound good. So, but then after we got into all of it, then we figured out how the whole big picture of what all really went down,
Exactly. And, how you found out. So you got, they made their move. They said, okay, again, we'll unpack this a lot later, but
Right.
you shouldn't be on Adderall. You're too old to be on Adderall is kind of what they were saying, this, and this. And so they kind of said, we're going to have to, did they suspend you for just a little bit, or you can't drive for a little bit?
Right.
And then I want to get to the point where when you found out,
Mhm.
you're going back and forth. Like, when can I just start driving again? When am I
Right.
going to get back in my car? When am I going to do this?
Right.
And then they said something, depends on how this meeting goes.
Right.
And you say, what meeting? Tell us about that.
Well, we that they tested me at Richmond on Friday night. Okay, and then Saturday I raced. Okay, so obviously your drug testing policy isn't really isn't that good. Basically, if you say that I did what I did, or saying that I did on Friday night, and then let me race on Saturday, that doesn't make sense how that would work. So I raced Saturday night, come back and was going to Darlington the following weekend, and after I took my test, I made sure that I would call Dr. Black. That's what they told us in the big meeting we had. Couldn't get in touch with him. So we go home Saturday night and Sunday. He calls me back. Hey, Jeremy, I got your message. This, that, and the other. Hey, yeah, okay. He goes, what are you doing taking? Because I told him what I was taking, Adderall. He said, what's a person of your age doing taking Adderall? Well, I don't know how to answer that question. All I know is that's what my doctor prescribed to me.
Right.
And that's exactly the way I said it, And he said, well, that's not good. That's not good. And I said, well, and my other thing is that I'm still taking my Claritin D, which is the only time I took it was at like certain parts of the year, once or twice a year,
Sure.
Wasn't like I was taking Claritin D every day. And I said, but I had taken my Claritin D because of my allergies, And he said, oh, well, wait a minute. Now we got a problem. And I'm blown away. I'm like, so I'm thinking, really, there's not a problem. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I'm thinking, really, what's the problem? He said, well, a person your age shouldn't be taking Adderall at first. And he goes, now you're taking Claritin D with it. It looks like you're trying to get stimulated for qualifying. I said, how do you come up with that conclusion? And I'm telling you what I took. I will stop taking it because it really ain't doing nothing for me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I only take my Claritin D once or twice a year.
Yeah.
So what's the problem?
Right.
Well, we'll see. And he hadn't even tested anything yet.
Yep.
My urine hadn't even made it back to his lab yet. This was Sunday. So he said, well, I'll test, we'll test it and see what it is. Okay. So he goes and they test it, I guess, throughout the week, whenever it was. Didn't hear anything about it. So on Thursday, we're driving to Darlington. I get a call. This is like Thursday night. Get a call from another guy. And this was Dr. Ackerman. He was a doctor somewhere else. I don't know if he worked for the lab or what. And he said, Jeremy, you tested positive for amphetamines. Okay, I'm sure I would. I told Dr. Black I probably would.
And for those that don't know, Adderall is some kind of something amphetamine.
Right.
It is amphetamine. That's a part of it. That's a part of the name. So
Right.
remember that.
Right. And so I said, yeah, I'm sure I would. He goes, well, do you have all your doctor's, notes and whatever, your prescription history and all this stuff? Yeah, I sure do. Okay, well, send that to us, and then you should be fine. Okay, so I get off the phone, call her doctor. Hey, we need to send all her stuff to this guy, whatever. So she sends all that to him that night, Thursday night. Well, Friday morning I get up and I get a call from Dr. Ackerman again. And now he was a nice guy Thursday, when I talked to him Thursday night. And then Friday morning it was, Jeremy, it's Dr. Ackerman, and got a couple questions. Okay, sure, fire it, And we're getting ready to practice pretty soon, 10 o'clock that morning. And he said, have you been inhaling anything? Have you inhaled anything? No, I don't think so. I don't smoke, so I guess I don't know what you mean by inhaling. What do you mean? So you sure you haven't inhaled anything? No. Like I said, I ain't been around nobody smoking or nothing, so I ain't inhaled. And by the way, I need to go to practice, so what's going on here, Well, I'll get back with you. Okay. So I go practice my cup car Friday morning. And while I'm practicing, I'm thinking, that was a weird, odd question if I hadn't inhaled anything. Well, So I thought about it. Well, the week before Richmond, we was at Talladega. I get in a wreck at Talladega, and my car catches on fire. So all this smoke, I had to bail out of the car because I thought I was going to die. You know what I mean? That's how bad it was in the car. So I get out, I thought, because I was choked up about it, and I was sick about the whole week going to Richmond. I didn't feel good, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, man, I bet that's what he's talking about. I'm excited, you know? Okay, yeah, man, I bet that's showing up in there, you know?
Right.
So after practice, I call him back. He done called me 2 or 3 more times, you know? And I said, hey, man, now that she said that, I thought about this, and I was at Talladega, got in a wreck, blah, blah, blah. You know, breathed a lot of smoke. So I did inhale something, you know? Oh, that's not what we're talking about. Okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. You know, I don't know what else to tell you, you know?
Yeah.
Well, you want us to send your B sample to another lab and get it checked and see if it shows something different. Just me, common sense, I'm thinking, if you pee in a cup and they pour a A and a B sample, why would it be any different? That's what I was thinking at the time. I said, I don't care what you do. You know, I don't know what you're getting at here. I don't care what you do with it.
Yep.
You know, well, we can send it to another lab, make sure they get the same result. Okay, it's sure probably going to show amphetamines in the B sample. I would say, you know, just common sense, you know.
Right.
So I told him, I said, I don't care what you do. Now I'm getting ready to go qualify. You know, I need to go. What do you want me to do? Well, I don't know what to tell you. You know, okay, we'll get back with you. So that's the last I heard of it. I went and qualified. We missed the race actually, probably because of some of that going on. You know, but we missed the race, and so I get home Saturday morning or Friday night. And Saturday morning, I get a call from John Darby, and he said, "Hey, Jeremy said that you failed your test and you're suspended indefinitely for NASCAR." So I'm like, John, I told him everything. I give him everything. Told him I would quit taking Adderall. Blah 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 blah. I know. He said, just do what Dr. Black says. I said, what do you mean what Dr. Black says? Call him and I said, well, I want to know what I got to do here. How quick can I get back racing again? You know,
Right.
Call Dr. Black. So I called Dr. Black this Saturday morning. I said, hey man, John Darby's called. They suspended me, you know, from whatever. And he told me to get in touch with you. What do I need to do? You know, he said, well, that all depends. So what do you mean depends on what? Well, we're fixing to have a press conference here at the racetrack at Darlington about me, basically. And I said, you're kidding me. A press conference. Well, now you're spreading it out to everybody, telling the whole world about this, and we're not even sure what's going on yet.
You're not even there.
I'm not even there. So I said, well, what do you mean depend on the press conference? He said, well, I said, what are you saying? It depends on how and what I say after the press conference. Is that what you're saying? He said, unfortunately, Jeremy, yes. That's what I'm saying. Just like that. So now I'm pissed. You know, I'm pissed off, you know, and now they go and have their press conference and tell the world that I've, you know, failed a drug test and this, that, and the other, which they should have never even done that. That's none of anybody's business, you know.
Sure.
I'm sure there's some kind of laws around that somewhere, you know, but they did and told the world all this stuff. And then it was just like, after that point, I'm sitting at home going, well, you know, the damage is done. How much more can you do now? You told the world.
Yep.
You know, so what do I do? You know, and we were blown away, just like didn't know what to think about it. And you know, we were shocked and just like got hit in the face and everything else, you know, and then it was like, well, the damage is done, you know, where do we go from here? You know, and I never got from Dr. Black or anybody, never talked about it to France or nobody about none of it. But all they had to do was say, hey, Jeremy, man, you might want to quit taking Adderall.
But here's the thing. So I remember, didn't you hear on the radio?
Yeah.
What about the press conference? And they said Jeremy Mayfield, and then so it's been amphetamine the whole time.
Right.
Amphetamine.
Well, they didn't say nothing that day what it was.
Okay.
That day, that particular day.
But all of a sudden they turned it into methamphetamine.
Right. When I went to after that, I said, okay, what are we going to do? And Shana asked me like on this Monday maybe. I said, what are you going to do? I was like, I don't know what to do. I didn't know what my next step was. You know, what do you do? Nobody's telling me anything. And she said, you are going to fight it, aren't you? And of course I'm like, yeah. I said, but you got to know what that means when I say, yeah, we're going to fight it. I said, you see everything you got around here, you know, everything we've got and everything we work for. I knew, you know, I knew day one that once you go up against NASCAR like that my career was done.
Yep.
You know, but I was willing to take that chance to stand up for what I believed in, you know. And I said, but it's taking everything we got and you push it all in one big circle.
Yep.
And you're all in, just like you're playing a poker game here.
Yep.
Push it all in. I said, you can't go out and we can't just throw a punch at them And they, oh man, sorry about that. I missed. Sorry about that. I'm sorry. I'll never do that again. You know,
Right.
it's either you fight them, it's the way I believe, or you don't.
Yep.
You know, and I said, okay, what's my options here? Is one of the two. And if I don't, what's that say about me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if I do, that's what I believe in. That's the way I believe. You know,
That's right.
so and if I don't, I'm gonna lay here every night and probably won't be able to live myself. You know, if I don't fight it, and just knowing my background and where I came from and what I believed in and how I was raised, that you got to stand for something. You know what I mean? And that was the time that I knew right then I was going to stand for something, or I wasn't going to do nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, or take a chance. So we took a chance and pushed it all in and started the war. You know, and obviously we didn't know what we was getting into. We jumped into a war that, again, I'm a race car driver. I don't know all this stuff. You know, I'm thinking the justice system will prevail. They'll look at the results, you know, and by this time we already, we already committed. We were in, you know. So
Yeah.
then we had a meeting with NASCAR like a week later.
Yep.
You know, I said, okay, let's try that. Let's see how that goes. You know, so I got an attorney, which is one of the biggest mistakes I made, getting an attorney from Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
And again, thinking that, you know, things with the justice system will work out, you know. So we go to meet with NASCAR and we sit there for 2 hours, and Dr. Black does all the talking, and he's explaining to us how that his lab's been in business for years. They don't have any false positives. There's no such thing as a false positive and all this stuff. And he's telling us how they got all these systems set in place, and they, you know, this guy here, and you got a lab technician here, and they do all this, and there's no way they can make any mistakes. And he's going through the whole process. And so we listened to all that, and then one of the things he said that caught my attention was he said that he owns the lab. He used to be a lab technician. He used to be the lab technician, or whatever they call him.
Right.
And but he doesn't do that anymore. He just owns the lab now. He owns where they do the testing, agents testing, and then he's in control of everything that comes in and out. Like if you fail a test, you go through Dr. Black to get back into the sport. All right, so there's one way in, one way out.
Okay.
And he owns the lab.
Yep.
So there's really no other discretion there that can happen, right? So, but in my situation, he said, I personally did your test after I called him Sunday night. So he personally went into his lab, which he hadn't done in a long time, and found my urine, which I don't know how you can find it because it's got numbers on it.
Right.
Those lab don't have your name on it.
Right.
He found mine and personally ran mine through the system, what they do, how they do all their stuff, you know, that they don't have false positives. And so he knew for sure. Now that takes out anybody, the lab technician takes out all these people right there because he personally did it.
Yep.
Right? And he never has any false positives. So he does that, and then he stopped talking. You got any questions? And my attorney said, yeah, I got one question. And Dr. Black said, what's that? And he said, what is the name of the chemical you put in the urine that takes out the pseudoephedrine, in our case, to keep a false positive from happening?
Right.
You know, that way it takes out that you don't see it. Here's what we got. He goes, like a deer in headlights. Never mentioned it the whole step of the way when he told us how he tested the urine. So he's sitting there like this stumbling. He literally said nothing. And we're like, and my attorney just goes, we don't have any more questions. And walked out. So it never did find out what the name of it was, but you have to do that because by this time we had expert witness and all kinds of stuff that was helping us.
Yeah.
And so that's the way that went down. So now we try to talk to him again. What do y'all want to do? No, we're standing firm on the ground. Well, Jeremy said he wouldn't never take Adderall again. Y'all test him every week, whatever you want to do. No, that's not good enough. He needs to go to road recovery. He needs to go to rehab. So
who said this? NASCAR.
Yeah, NASCAR's telling whoever
road
at NASCAR,
recovery.
Yeah, road recovery. And now I got to go through Dr. Black to go through road recovery, who the guy that didn't even remember what chemical he put in it to take out the ephedrine.
Right.
So I don't have much confidence in Dr. Black, if any whatsoever at all. At that
right.
point.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go to rehab. Okay, if I did, I'm saying if I went, I'm going to sit in rehab and go, and they're going to come around and ask me, Jeremy, what are you in here for? Well, I took Adderall like 3 months in a row. Doctor prescribed, never took more than one a day. Took exactly what I was supposed to take. I'm sitting here in rehab now.
Yeah.
And I just could not believe that they didn't have enough common sense. That Brian France, the head of the CEO of the whole company, did not have enough common sense to go, man, we need to look into this. Let's look at our side and see if we made a mistake.
Right.
But that's something they don't do.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have to because they do what they want to do. And so with all that said, I just could not believe what I was seeing and hearing. So as it was going down, I was just in shock. And then the more we got in shock, the more people that reached out to us, like people that made the instruments that they test with, you know, the equipment that they test with, how it all, you know, how the whole procedure goes down. And then we got into the SAMHSA certified labs, and then we got into SAMHSA rules and regulations for drug testing for people in the workforce. And the more we got into it, the more it was like everything was wrong, you know. And how can this happen? So we go to court with all that on our side. And when we go to court the first time, we won our injunction because the judge even said, after they sat there for 20 minutes and telling the whole world that, and telling the judge that I was a threat to all the stands, fans in the stands, and all my competitors.
You look like a threat.
That I could take out hundreds of thousands of people if I flip my car up in the grandstands. That's what they're telling the judge. And he laughed it off. He laughed when she got done. And her name's Helen, by the way. And she got done, and he said, well, I have to disagree with that because our fighter pilots that we send over to Iran, Iraq, wherever they go, most of the time take methamphetamine to stay awake to go do their job. And if we can trust them with methamphetamine in their system and to go fly our airplanes and fighter pilots, you know, and be in combat,
right,
then I don't think that it's a danger to the sport.
That's right.
Basically.
Yeah.
Even if he was or wasn't. And then he said, and by the levels I'm looking at, the levels were ungodly. Whoever typed them up went way overboard on the levels, because that was like, I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Yeah.
He said, by the levels I'm looking at, it looks to me like it's probably the false positive. You know,
right.
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
So we won the injunction. He gave me my license back. That was like on a Thursday or something like that. And Daytona was coming up that weekend, which we weren't going anyway. And so when he said that, they were pissed. You know, Brian got his feelings hurt, and he just didn't like that at all. You know,
right.
We beat them at their own game on the drug test. So about Monday, that week of we weren't going anyway. So Monday of that week or whatever it was, I had a meeting with the guy at my shop to maybe purchase my team. I was going to sell it and, move on. I knew that we were already, we're in deep trouble with them anyway, So while I'm at my meeting, I looked down at my phone and I got a couple missed calls calls. Checked my messages, and it was some lab somewhere that said up in Kannapolis that wanted me. I had 2 hours to get to their lab to be tested. And that was it. I was like, it's already been 2 hours. I've been here, doing this. I didn't have any idea. So I called my attorney, and he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. They can't do that." Okay, I didn't worry about it. So I went about my business. On the way home, I get another call. And this is about 6 o'clock at night. I'm on the way home. He says, "Hey, man, they're going to be at your house. Are you there?" "Who's going to be at my house?" "NASCAR. They're going to test you at your house." Okay. So at that time, I would get home about an hour from there. So it's be about 7 before I get there. When I get there, there's NASCAR security out in front of my house and all this stuff. And they're going to test me again. I thought, man, that makes no sense why they would do that. At 7 o'clock at night, why would you do that? And all they wanted to do was for me to pee in a cup.
Yep.
And that was that simple. Once I pee in a cup, I just like peeing my life away.
Yep.
That one cup. It ain't going to a lab. It nowhere. It doesn't matter now. You pee in a cup, it's over.
Yeah.
That's what I was, looking at. And my attorney's like, "No, you just need to do it." And I'm like, I knew right then, I was like, something ain't right. It just didn't feel right. And so meanwhile, Shayna arranged with my doctor to go to the hospital as soon as we left there to get my own test.
Yep.
Just go straight there. And we had all this was documented too on we had a guy living with us that did our documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Or was going to do a documentary. We're still doing it, but at this time we were just getting all footage of everything, And so my attorney's telling me, "Oh, you got to do it. You got to do it. Got to do it." I was like, "John, once they do that, all they want is me to pee in a cup. Then they're going to go right back and tell the judge, because they're the ones that can write down any result they want to write down."
Right.
Dr. Black can do what he wants to do,
Yeah.
And now Brian France is probably on Dr. Black's, but how this happened, and so he's gonna cover his butt, right?
Right.
And that's common sense, you know. And so I peed in her cup, and I let them know then. I said, I want y'all to know I'm going straight to the hospital right now and do my own test because there ain't no labs open anywhere to go pee in a cup
Right.
at 7:00 at night.
Yep.
So I went to the Fry Hospital and all videoed, all documented, went in and done our own test. I'm thinking now that will at least hold them kind of accountable. You know what I mean? If it's wrong, you know what I mean? Sort of,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
And so our results came back from the hospital deal, and it was nothing because I had quit taking my Adderall at that point.
Yeah.
And I actually ran out of my Adderall, and I was going to get refilled the time they tested me. And you know, you can only take like 30 a day or 30 a month, whatever the number is, you know.
Yeah.
And I hadn't got mine refilled yet, so my results come back nothing, zero. And my attorney calls them, you know, up, hey, you lower the cutoff level as low as you can get them to make sure there's nothing. Okay, they did that. Now we got test results right here 20 minutes later, you know, from Fry Hospital, what, you know, just everything perfect on it from LabCorp. And didn't hear anything about NASCAR. Didn't hear nothing from them. So we're waiting and waiting and waiting, and 2 or 3 weeks went by. Still hadn't heard anything. And you know, if they thought, you know, or if they, you know, because when I went and tested my own, and then they had something they had to deal with, right? So I get a call about 3 or 4 weeks out from Dr. Black. Hey, Jeremy, said, got a couple questions for you. I said, hey, Dr. Black, how are you? You know, just nice as can be. Well, pretty good. Said your test come back positive again. I said, well, I could have told you that. I told you that when I peed in the cup, that was what's going to happen, no matter what it was.
Yep.
I could have a dog pee in your cup, and it's going to come back positive. You
Right.
know?
Yep.
And he said, well, let me ask you a question. Are you still taking your Adderall? I said, oh, yeah, because I'll tell you why. We learned from some really good people how all this goes down. Well, to get methamphetamine, you got to have amphetamine in it. Okay, and to get the result numbers, nanograms per milliliter, you got to have a certain percentage of amphetamine to make up the methamphetamine. So if I'm not taking my Adderall, the methamphetamine level will show up different than would if I am taking it. So I said, yeah, I've been taking it. Oh, yeah. And, I mean, they lied to me, and they told me a bunch of crap, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm saying the same thing right back to them. Yeah, I did that because I was at that point. I was taking it.
Yeah.
And so, okay, that's all I need to know. And I knew exactly why he was calling. I knew exactly what he needed. If I'd have said no, it was going to be one number. If I said yes, it's going to be another number.
Right.
At the time of my test, I wasn't taking anything.
Yeah.
You know, so sure enough, about another week goes by, ain't heard nothing. Another week goes by, bam, here they do it. Mayfield fails test again, you know, fails drug test the second time. So we're thinking, man, good, we got them now. We go to court and show our results. They show their results. Hers, again, was a substantial amount of nanograms per milliliter of methamphetamine on their results.
Right.
And so we showed the judge, well, they told the judge that that LabCorp couldn't test for methamphetamines the way they test for it.
LabCorp couldn't.
LabCorp
They're just the largest probably in the country.
Yeah.
But they don't have the ability to do what Dr. Black.
Right. Like Dr. Black, he's the man. You know, he's the only one who can test.
He's the only one.
Right. And that LabCorp could not do it. They did not have the equipment to do it and could not do it. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, there's a lot of people in trouble out there with the DOT because that's who they use.
Yep.
You know, for truck drivers and everybody else.
Exactly.
And so anyway, they told the judge that you couldn't go off those results because they didn't do it, and Aegis was the only one. They're the best country or best thing in the country for testing all that. So with all that said, the damage is still done.
Yeah, it's done.
You know, Mayfield test positive again, blah blah blah. All that's done, and it's showing the judge. See, judge, you let him win the injunction, and now look what's happened if we let him go back to Daytona.
Right.
He's doing it again. You know, you let him out. Now he's back again. Failed another test. You know.
Yep.
And but anyway, we can go on all day talking about all that same stuff. But the bottom line too was the amounts of nanograms per milliliter that were shown on my first test. The first thing one of the expert witnesses looked at, he said he looked up a person who had OD'd on methamphetamine, what their nanograms per milliliter were in their urine. It was like 28,000 nanograms per milliliter was they were dead. And that's the highest they could find anywhere at that point in time. Well, mine showed 69,000 nanograms per milliliter. 69,000. So the likelihood of it being a false positive was very high, obviously, and that just to make it all a little bit more simpler. If you blow a .40 on your alcohol test, if you got pulled over and you were drinking and driving, you blew a .40, it probably wouldn't happen because you'd be dead.
Right.
You know, and that's .40 on the alcohol side of it. That's equivalent to nanograms per milliliter on the urine side of it for methamphetamine. So if 29,000 was lethal, that's the lethal limit at that point in time that they had ever found.
Yeah. Right.
And I blew 69,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's 3 times the lethal limit. That's like blowing a 1.2 or 1.5 on the scale, and also, and you're not even drunk. You're not even. Nobody can tell.
Right.
You're acting normal as can be, and yeah. That's what it would be like. And for somebody that's on meth and had that much in their system, beyond a shadow of a doubt, would show signs. You would be geeked out, or you'd be
you'd be biting your shoulder.
Right. Something be going on. You wouldn't be normal, and you certainly wouldn't be driving a race car.
Exactly. Well, so that's honestly, if we go back to what I feel, NASCAR didn't want to admit that they made a mistake. They didn't want to back up.
Right. They weren't. They done committed.
They committed.
Right.
So they gave you this option, and this is what this right here, what I'm about to tell you, is what made me understand who you are as a person.
Right.
And I didn't really know you. Is when they offered you to do the road to recovery, and then they would consider letting you back in.
Right.
But road to recovery from what?
Right.
You said no.
Right.
And this is where I get ate up, because I tell a lot of people, my mom gave me my loving side, right? She gives me hugs, kisses, and how much she loves me. My dad's over here, stone cold hustle machine. He's just hardcore. But he gave me a protective spirit. He said 3 things. If he said it one time, he said it 172 times.
Right.
Never take advantage of people. Stand up for people being took advantage of, and be happy when people succeed.
Right.
Don't be jealous. So I have a very protective spirit. So when I found out that, look, you could have caved in. You could have said, okay, I can get back into NASCAR, what I love.
Right.
You're on the way of losing everything.
Right.
And you had a lot. I mean, I know you're one of the most humble people that I know.
Right.
And I want to touch on something else too.
Right.
But you said no, and you knew what that meant. All of that can be taken away, but you're not going to admit to something that was false. You stood your ground because you knew who you were.
Right.
And so the other thing I was going to say is, you've gone through this. I talk about purpose is what is paved with potholes.
Right.
You ain't got potholes, man. You got pavement missing.
Right. Right. Yep. A bridge gone.
Yeah, you got a bridge gone, but you kept on going.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never heard you complain.
Right.
You've gone through this, and you'll tell it. You'll tell the story, but you've never just been real bitter about it, because you know who you are, you know what you stand for, and I have to imagine that faith has had a lot to do with you just continuing with your head down, going straight, confident in who you are,
right,
and who has you.
Right, exactly. And when you hear all that, you hear the story, like to me and my wife both, it's a big story, but it's like we look at each other sometimes, we're like, how did we get through that? Because it really wasn't that hard. That's what's crazy, and I mean, it was hard, but it was when you look back, it wasn't that hard. We made it through it. You know what I mean? Both of us. And it's just, again, that's a miracle, and
we ain't even touched on,
right.
We've touched on about 1/8 of it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But
there's a lot.
I have been, since I met you, I've been convicted. I mean, well, you know how I've been.
Right.
I want the world to know that how you were done.
Right.
I want the world to open their mind, because your mind's like a parachute. It works best when it's
Right.
open. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Oh
And
yeah.
you hear the facts.
Yeah.
And this was terrible. But man, you're one of the most
Right.
happy-go-lucky people. You're at peace, and because I have to believe you know who's got
Right.
you, and that everything's just going to work out.
That's been my, you know, my whole thing about everything too. Is like everything's always worked out, and it will, and this too shall pass. And you've heard that before, you know.
Yes.
And things would keep coming at us, and you know, Shana will look at me sometime and be like, I even have my mom call me sometimes. She's like, man, you know, throughout all this, like, what's wrong with you? What do you mean, what's wrong with me? Well, you know, you should be, you know, worried about this or worried about that. And I wasn't. I never worried throughout all of it. I mean, there's times where you got to think about stuff. You got to figure out what you're going to do, how you're going to handle certain things. But to me, that wasn't worrying. You know what I
Yep.
mean? But I didn't have to worry. You know, and to go from where I come from when I was growing up with nothing. You know, I mean, I had some race cars. Yeah, we raced a little bit. We didn't have any money. You know, not any. I couldn't go no further than where I was at. And to go from there, and that was 1989, 88, 89, 90, and then 96, 95, 96, something like that. I made a Cup Series. You know, I'm like, how do you go from being some little kid in Owensboro, Kentucky, nobody's heard of, and now I'm looking down going, man, I'm here. You know, that all happened within 5 or 6 years when I left there. When I left
Right.
Owensboro. So I knew then there was miracles and there was something else that are higher to be, because I shouldn't have made it there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I did somehow, and it was like I just followed the road. You know, I just went, okay, it's time to go, time to move to Nashville. Moved to Nashville, and then it was like, okay, time. You know, did some stuff there, racing with Saddlers. Now it's time to move to North Carolina. Move to North Carolina, and then it just like it all happened. And every road I was going, every crossroads, something told me, okay, make a left here, make a right there. You know, go straight. No, don't turn there. Don't go to that gas station. Just keep trucking, you know.
Yeah.
And so I had the path laid out for me, you know. And then I got there, and I thought, man, that's a tough thing to do for a little kid now that's racing go karts to go from, especially not any money, and just racing go karts, get by wherever you can scrounge up to race on, and to make it into the Cup Series. How hard is that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And somebody from, let's say, you know, Owensboro, Kentucky, you know, for example, how hard is it to go there, you know, and not have any experience on how to get there? You just followed the path that life took you, and you got there. That's what happened to me. And then I look back at that thinking, man, you know, especially nowadays, I look back going, I accomplished the hardest thing I thought was ever going to be in my life. You know, I knew I wanted to race. I knew I wanted to be at the top the whole time. Never had any doubts whatsoever. I knew that's what I was going to do. And then when I got there, then it all fell. And then I'm like, man, that's the easiest thing I ever done, was go from nothing to the top. You know, if I can do that, I can certainly survive this.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And whether I'll be back up there, wherever that up there means, I don't really care what up there means anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that I've learned a lot throughout the whole experience that I'll never, a lot of people never experience, you know, and never get to see what I got to see, whether good or bad, you know, racing Dale Earnhardt, you know, win against him, you know, that's just something that unbelievable still
Yep.
today for me. And then all the way to the fall of it, you know, to the hitting the bottom. And, but, you know, I look back and go, yeah, it's been a tough 15 years. It's about what it's been, you know, but yet I've learned so much over the last 15 years that you can't shake that. You know what I mean? It's like, where else are you going to get that kind of experience? You know,
Right.
who'd want to take that road to get that kind of experience?
Exactly. Well, man, we need to wrap up here. We're probably going to have to do another session for sure.
Third or fourth one, yeah.
Yeah, third or fourth. It'll be a series for sure, because I've enjoyed this. But man, I'm just going to tell you, I think the world of you. Just who you are.
Well, I appreciate that.
You know, you're authentic. You are who you are, and your past can help somebody else's future.
Yep.
I believe that.
Yep.
And you know who has been in control this whole time. God has led you through this, but He's never walked away from you.
Right.
And
that's one thing I want to kind of say a little bit. I'll make it fast. I know we don't have much time, but you know, after I made it there, throughout all that, here's the part that a lot of people don't realize is that I got up there and I had everything going on, airplanes, motorhomes, great. All right, God, I got it now, buddy. You got me up here where I'm supposed to be. Thank you. I can handle from here. Now you can go spend your time with somebody else.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I
Yep.
had those thoughts,
Sure.
and appreciate it. Thank you, Eric, for everything you've done for me.
Yep.
I got it from here. I didn't have it from there.
Wow.
That's the worst thing I could have done,
Wow.
And then when it all come crashing down that quick, I can remember saying or just thinking, that, you hear the saying, you're one bad decision away from everything collapsing on you. Well, people
Yeah.
don't realize it until it does. And that's so true.
Yes.
When you look back at it, it's like, made it to the top. Okay. I got it. Everything's under control here. Boom. Then it's over,
That's right.
but I got to look back and go, when I do look back, I was so far away from knowing God and knowing how things work, and how it's supposed to be and the way I was supposed to, you know, praise Him, give the glory to Him.
Mm.
I never did that,
Right.
and I should have more than what I did. You know what I mean? I got there, okay, I got from here.
Yeah.
I still went to church and still prayed and this that and
Sure.
other, but thought, man, I'm on top here, but I didn't realize it all till now. Not till now, till after I look back and think, man,
Yeah.
it's all happened for a reason, and I had to go. Now I'm gonna struggle, and I've already went through the struggles, and there'll be more to come. There always is for somebody,
Yep.
but you just keep going at it.
Sometimes our heart has to break for Him to do something new inside of
Yep.
us.
That's
So,
right.
well, Jeremy, man, I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for being on the show. And I know we'll have another episode coming up
Right.
soon. But listen, I hope you guys heard this message, and I hope you know why I was so excited to have him on. Because look, it's just the truth. It's about doing the right thing. It's about standing up for what's right and being who you were created to be, and not being a puppet. So many people are trying to fit in when you're called to stand out. You're living by default and not living by design. And this man right here is a walking example of that. And so, again, Jeremy, thank you for being on.
Thank you.
Tune into our next episode, the Wealth Revolution podcast. Hit us up if you need us. Gone.